This is Real Retirees Uncut. No filters, no scripts, just conversations about what retirement is really like. Let's meet another real retiree. Give me your name, age, and where you're from.
My name is Jim. I am 60 and a half, and I'm from the Fort Worth area.
Okay, Jim, when did you retire and from what career field?
I retired last August, so 2024. Um, I was an electrical engineer. I did for 35 years between Motorola and Nokia. I was an electrical engineer, and I developed cellular radio transmission equipment, not
Okay,
the phones.
right. Now, what drove your decision to retire? When did you know you had enough and it was time to go?
Well, I since I started working, I had always tried. My father instilled to me, he never saved a dime, but he said, as soon as you can start contributing to your retirement, you should do that. So as soon as I started working for Motorola, way back when, I started sacking away. They had at that time they had a 401k, and they would match my contribution. So I tried to put as much away as I could, figuring, if you don't have it in your hand come paycheck day, you don't need it, you don't spend it,
Yeah.
you don't get used to having it.
Hmm.
So I think that's probably really important, because
Yeah.
the sooner you can start, the more money it's going to build into. Because you wait
Yeah.
till
Now,
later.
was there any crucial point in your career where you just kind of said you had enough and you knew the time was right and it was time to go?
Uh, I would say when I hit about about 50, uh, my group, my part of Motorola got purchased by Nokia, and their way of doing things was vastly different than
Yeah. Yeah.
Motorola, and it wasn't a family friend. At Motorola they treat you a family member. At
Hmm.
Nokia, you were a person doing a job.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
So as soon as I can get out of here.
So leading up to that point, what has been your approach to, or what was your approach to savings, investing, and planning to make sure that you were financially secure to be able to make that transition?
I would say, like I said, I'd always thought about retiring early. So I had very early on started targeting figure what do I need to be able to retire, and I always kind of thought that if I can replace my monthly income, or very close to it, then I could probably pull it off.
Right.
Uh, when you're younger, you don't really think about that, but there's a vast difference between when you're working and you're putting money away for savings than when
Yeah.
you're retired. You don't need to do a whole lot of that.
And what kind of financial instruments did you use to do that?
Well, the money managers, I won't say which one, but if you talk to them as you're using your 401k, and they set you on the road to do it. But I pretty much started doing. I downloaded a couple of spreadsheets. Being an engineer, you're pretty good with math, so
Hmm.
you're able to figure out how to calculate what you're going to end up with and what you're
Okay.
going to need to make it through, how long you think you're going to
Yeah.
live.
So I take it that you were investing in the stock market, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc.,
I
401ks.
I have the 401k, and I have, I won't say a huge stock fund, but I have a pretty good stock fund.
Yeah.
And then we inherited, my wife's grandparents left us a fairly sizable stock fund. So
Okay. And during that money management period, did you do it all on your own? I heard you say spreadsheets, or did you use a financial advisor or both?
a little bit of financial advisor. When you start getting close, you say like 50, you need to go sit down with your financial advisor,
Make
and
sure you're on track.
they'll make sure you're in the right
Yeah.
pathway.
Yeah. Now, since you've retired, what has been your primary means of retirement income sources to sustain yourself month to month, year to year?
Right now, it's just been the 401k withdrawals. I do have a small pension, but I really don't rely on it. That's kind of vacation
Mm-hmm.
money. But I haven't touched the stock funds. It's just more or less 401k.
401k. Now, here's something I hear a lot of people say is that when they look at their investment accounts post retirement, sometimes they find that account continues to grow faster than they can spend it. Have you
Sure,
experienced any of that?
I experienced that also. I thought, when I figured out how much I needed to survive on a month, and figured I had enough to make that happen. Even my spreadsheets, it said, okay, you've got X in your retirement funds. how many years you're going to live, and you start withdrawing that,
Yeah.
and it figures it out where it's going to zero out, and that's your maximum monthly withdrawal. So I thought, okay, I've got enough with what I have. But even taking that out, the market's been fairly good, so it's been growing considerably more than. In fact, I got more now than I when I started
Yeah.
retiring.
That's good to hear. Now, been a person that has saved for so long, 30, 40, 45 years or so, have you experienced going from that savings mentality to the spending mentality and having to flip that switch in your mind? And has that been a challenge for you?
It wasn't a challenge because I had read some about that and realized that makes sense, that you're no longer just figuring out what you need for your monthly
Yeah.
income. You're not putting away the 401k money. You're not you're not being taxed Social Security. So that's a big chunk of your monthly income that you were using
Mm-hmm.
that you don't need to count on anymore. So
Right.
you can kind of deduct that from what your monthly needs are, and it makes the amount smaller. So
Yeah. You speak a lot about that in this book called Die with Zero.
right.
Um, let's talk Social Security for a minute. Have you decided when you're going to take Social Security,
I
and whatever age you're deciding to take it, why are you going to take it at that age as opposed to wait until later?
I'm going to take it at 62, as soon as I can.
Yeah.
One, because right now the government's talking about changing that retirement age, and
Mm-hmm.
if I can get in, and I'm hoping that they won't change it once you start pulling from it. But if you do the math, if you the difference between you start withdrawing it from 62 and your maximum, I think it's what
70.
67, 70.
Yeah.
Um, if you figure out how much money you get from Social Security and how much you would get starting from 70, I think the break even point for that money is 78, 79
You're
years
right. I've
old.
heard
And,
78.
you
So,
know, am I going to live that long? I hope I live that long, but
yeah.
and like I said, I've got enough money in the 401k. I really don't need the Social Security, but it's going to help me have that money last longer. So I'm just going to start taking it at 62. And
Makes sense. Now in retirement, what does a typical day look like for you? Just kind of walk me through your day from morning till night on a typical day.
it when I first retired, I was busy all the time. There was so many little home projects and things that I wanted to do and hobbies that I do that I was going every day. And I mean, that was the point where I had to have a list of stuff that I wanted to get done, and I'd check it off as I went.
Uh-huh.
It slowed down a little bit now. It's been over a year, but I still there's so much stuff to do every day. I hang with my friends some. I still do the chores around the house. I can take better care of the yard, better care of the house, and I find myself doing. My wife's still working. She's going to retire in this June, but there's little things that she needs me to do because she's working that she doesn't have time to do. So I can
Okay.
take care of that stuff. So you're really not bored too often because I start sitting around. I replace it with some other interest.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you enjoy most about retirement?
The freedom to do what I want and not have to answer to somebody else.
Yeah. Have you had any major lifestyle changes? Have you moved, downsized, start traveling more, anything like that?
No, we thought about downsizing, but my daughter and my grandchildren have moved from being half an hour away to being about 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to move, but then we started looking around the area. If we sold our house, we wouldn't be able to replace it with a smaller house for less money.
Mm-hmm.
The housing costs have gone up so much.
Yeah. Especially when you have a low interest rate.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
So it's the thought was there. We really surely don't need the house we've got, but I'm not going to sell it and take on another new house and new mortgage and stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
to downsize.
What about any new hobbies, interests, or skills that you might have picked up since you retired?
Uh, I'm doing a little bit more with my home computer now. I recently bought a network attack storage unit, so getting that set up and playing with that.
Okay.
Being an engineer, that kind of crap you do.
Yeah.
But I've done woodworking for a long time, so I just have more time to do that stuff now.
Now, what has been your biggest challenge or your biggest surprise? Something that you thought was going to happen that didn't happen, or something that didn't happen that you thought was going to happen?
I really don't have a huge surprise. Like I think the biggest shock was that your 401k is worth more.
Yeah.
I did not count on that happening. I was hoping to be able to not take too much out of it before I could start collecting Social Security and such. And that worry is now gone.
The power of compound interest.
Yes.
Do you wish you would have retired sooner or later, or do you think you retired on time?
I, when I was younger, I was thinking, oh, 55 would be an awesome time to retire.
Hmm.
Uh, when as I got older, I said, 57 and realized just for tax implications, the 57 and a half is your better target unless you're saving outside of 401ks and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, my wife she's a school teacher, so she can't retire until she has got enough years in the school system, and that's this June. So
Yeah.
she's working. I really can't do much without her. I'm not going to take trips and stuff without her. So I figure I'll just keep working the extra
Yeah.
couple of years. So
Now, as you were planning to retire, looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently to better prepare?
um, I think we discussed this off camera, but opening up a Roth IRA and pulling some of the money out of the 401k and paying the taxes on it and moving it
Yeah.
over. But by the time I read about that strategy or learned about that strategy, it was too far along. You have to start that a little earlier than
Right.
I had time for. So
Right.
that would be about the only thing.
Tell me a couple things that you're glad that you never have to deal with when it comes to the workplace.
Just the idiocracy of some of the stuff that goes on there, and the drive. Right,
Yeah.
you driving every day to work. You count your blessings. You never got into a major accident or something. So you figure you do that every day of your life.
Hmm.
Something's going to happen at some point. But I got lucky.
Yeah. Now, have you done any estate planning?
Yes, we've. I think it was a little bit before I retired. We put all our stuff into a trust so that I didn't have to worry about the kids having to go through probate court and such
Hmm.
like that. So yeah, we did that kind of estate planning and sat down with an estate planner and got
Yeah.
all that
It
set up.
sounds like that's highly advisable.
Very advisable.
Yeah. How would you define retirement success? In a few words, what is your definition of a successful retirement?
Having enough money to do what you want to do.
Hmm.
For us, it's traveling. My wife wants to see a lot of places. She wants to spend time with the grandkids, which she can't do now because she's working all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think success is living your best life.
Okay. And finally, what is some advice that you could give to someone that's maybe 5 to 10 years out from retirement? Just some general advice, maybe something that we haven't covered or anything that comes to mind.
Uh, Again, I want you to make sure you have all your stuff put into place. Uh, One thing like I said, I got our company got bought by Nokia, and I put my 401k from Motorola into its, as a separate IRA fund.
Right.
And kept that there instead of rolling it over into the Nokia fund. So as it got closer to retirement, I think at 57 and a half, you can pretty much quit your job or if you got laid off or you got fired or something, and you can pull the money out of your current employer's 401k.
Hmm.
Well, I didn't have nearly enough in that 401k. It was because it was new that I felt comfortable. So I pulled rolled some from the Motorola fund into that. So if that did happen,
Yeah.
I would have enough money.
I think you may be referring to the rule of 55. A lot of people were talking
55,
about that.
55,
Yeah, rule
yeah.
of 55. Great
Sorry.
advice. But again, I thank you very much for all the advice that you shared to the audience. So please like, share, and subscribe.